So this video is looking at clients, all about managing clients, new clients, existing clients, and I'll step you through the basics of the fields that you are likely to see. Let's take a look. So here we have logged in and landed as per usual on the message boards. So we're clicking on class because we're dealing with individuals as opposed to services for the community. And we've got a couple of options where, for example, we could search for clients. An obvious way, particularly if you're thinking that you want to create a new client, is via the conflict check mechanism. You can also create a new client using the new intake procedure. And also we could search, and I'll click on this one, for existing clients here. And if you don't find them, you can create a new client from here, providing your center is set up to allow you to do so. Some centers are rigidly wanting everybody to go through the intake process. So if you can't see a new on the search clients page, it's because you can only do it via new intake. In this case we can, but first we'll just maybe look for someone. I'll put in a Smith here, for example, and found a whole bunch of them. We could further refine this search, and if you want to know more about searching or indeed conflict checking, there is an alternate video that details that information. So we want to just choose one. Now we've found some of the options. I'll just note though, see that yes, that's showing that that client is flagged. I'll talk to that in a second. Okay, so let's click on one of them. And here we now have a typical client with the 4 tabs relating to clients, and I'm going to walk you through those. Now, if you change anything like an additional detail, say an extra address or something, and save it, it saves the entire, 4 tabs here at once. So that's all good. We can flip between these, and this is all part of the client mechanism. So let's look at this main page, the client details page. We can see down the bottom notes. Now this is distinct from any other kinds of notes. These are client notes. They stay here and don't move. They're not attached to a service, and they're not part of the intake note procedure or anything like that. You can use this in the same way that you use it in Silsys, except there's a difference. Now we have this flagged button. That is now what turns a client pink in the search. In fact, the whole client goes pink, you'll see later. Whereas in Silsys, that used to happen if you typed information into the note. Now you actually have to tick the flag box. We use the term flagged because we just wanted it to be non-committal as to what that means, because you guys use this function for all kinds of different purposes. Let's walk through some of these fields. Client ID, if you've got a prefix letter in front of it, that means it's come from Silsys. And if it's just a straight number, then you know that they're quite new. This is fairly obvious. A client type individual. If they were an organization or anything along those lines, you'd have different fields showing. They wouldn't be first name and last name and such. You'd have like the organization name. Other name you should know about in that it is both for middle names and also nicknames and anything like that. So the search will work no matter what. Keywords, if you're not across this is a very useful tool. Let's say you want to categorize people. It can also be the way you categorize services in the same way. So let's say they always wear a blue tie, and that's something you could put in, say, multiple clients and search all that group of clients for whatever reason you're dealing with stuff. It might be, say, a research that you're doing or of a particular type of person or something like that. So that's like just a free tagging system that you guys can use and search. I've already talked flagged, so let's move on. This group of fields is called contact details. If you want to hide it, you can by just clicking there, but I'll walk you through these. A privacy type you can add. As soon as I drop that, you're probably familiar with this kind of do not call, do not mail. Down the line, these will actually link to a limitation of functions. When we have email inside the system, we don't yet, but down the line it will. Similarly, SMS, you won't actually be able to do that if these are ticked. And you can also just say see client notes, which would be obviously the note down the bottom. Now we've got a couple of fields relating to phones. We've separated mobile out from the rest, and so these other phone types is primarily for home and work and etc. and other. It does have mobile there at the moment. That's going to disappear. If you've got multiple mobiles, we want to put that in other. But for now, if you've got new mobiles, do use this new field. This is the one we're going to be using for SMSs when we get that on in a couple of months' time. So we want this to be good quality data, no text or anything in here. Okay, next is email type. Similar kind of thing, homework, other. You can have multiple email types, you can have multiple phones, and indeed multiple addresses, and they'll all be available here in additional details, which I'll show you in a second. Here we've got address type, street, resi, and the rest of them, postal, work, etc. Nothing too difficult there, except if you're not familiar with this search stuff, it's pretty good. We can put in, say, a suburb and click on it, and it actually then will look up everything and pre-fill the correct postcode and all that business. If it's a genuine address, you can also click on it and it'll pop up Google Maps and you'll be able to see exactly where it is. That's actually quite useful if you're not sure if you've got exactly the right place, and sometimes you need to check that. Okay, over here we've got some personal details. Now, some of these will be made mandatory by your centre. Now, generally speaking, the default would be known. Some people don't know their age, or you're just having a guess. Generally be fairly obvious to you which type it is. If you're not familiar with this one, you can drop it down. You can click on it and just kind of find dates much quicker that way, and just select something like that and like that. And once we've okayed it, you can click on a date, but if you're still not happy, you could change that by text as well. So it works in all kinds of ways. Jenna's got all the new gender things from the ABS, but you might find what we call L data here. If they're an option with a little L in brackets, they're actually custom options that your center has added in Celsius. And we put them across for consistency. So particularly you can see older records, but wherever possible, you should move to these new non-L versions, particularly if there's any duplicates. Always move to the non-L versions because that'll be consistent. All the rest of them are fairly obvious and you should be fairly familiar. Country of birth, some of you know country names and things like that. That should be dealt with by code order, but you can also search either by code or alphabetical. You type it in and it'll come up. Theory of arrival is fairly obvious. We've got now 2 kinds of proficiency in English spoken and written. That's an Attorney General's data standard. You'll get used to that pretty quickly. And requires an interpreter or translator. Those options are going to be updated, so don't panic about that if not everything's right. What you're seeing is a demo version of the site. It's being rapidly fixed as we go. Income details are fairly clear. No surprises there. And same with Centrelink and such. Again, a lot of this stuff will pull anything that you have from your Celsius. All right, additional details I've mentioned. So this is where you could do multiple addresses, emails, and additional phones. You do want to keep all of the old things. You can mark the type, say, as a former address. That's quite important because if you've got, say, Old Coro or something like that, you'll still be able to see that you've got the right person. So do keep all those things. Now, client services, here's where we list all the services. So if they've got the advices and things like that attached to this person, you'll find them all listed here and you can click on this to head across to the service and have a look at it. Client audit is not fully functional right now, but if you change details here, it'll actually list the change and when and by whom. And that's basically what we call the audit trail, and it'll be useful particularly for administrators. Volunteers, for example, won't be able to see that tab. So basically you make changes, you can just save it like that, and it takes a moment and tells you that record has been saved successfully. And basically that's how clients work. I will say though, you can head back and click on, say, another one, and you'll have multiple clients up here in the tabs that you can just bounce between them if you need to. Here's an example of someone who has been flagged and they are pink. So I'll leave that there. That's your basics of managing clients.